Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Shiva Rezvan and part of the Connecticut Psychological Association education team. And today we are going to start the first episode of the Connecticut Psychological Association interview series. These series are about psychologists' stories. Stories are powerful tools to get connected to people. Psychologists hear the story of their clients, get connected to them, and do their best to empower their clients. It might be the time to hear psychologists' stories to create a stronger connection between psychologists and the community. I'm so excited to say that today we have Dr. Jennifer Doran, the president of the Connecticut Psychological Association, with us. A warm welcome, Dr. Doran.
Thank you so much, Shiva. I'm very happy to be here this morning.
Thank you so much. So, would you please tell us briefly about you?
Absolutely. So I am an early career psychologist. I did my training out of New York City. I went to the New School in New York City and moved to Connecticut about 6 years ago for my internship at the VA Connecticut, where I still am working today. At the VA, I direct the VA's New England Region Virtual Care Clinic and sort of supervise an interdisciplinary team of mental health providers that serves veterans across New England in rural and underserved communities. So we support sites that are really under-resourced. As part of that work, I oversee our training program. We train, emerging psychologists across the spectrum and also serve as a supervisor as part of that role. In addition, as you stated, I am the current CPA president, which I am enjoying very, very much. And I'm also an assistant professor at the Yale School of Medicine.
Lots of activities, Dr. Doran. Fantastic. So would you please tell us, how did you get into this field?
So it's an interesting question. And my answer is almost by accident. It wasn't something that I initially set out to do. It wasn't a part of my plan for myself. In fact, I had no plans after high school to attend college at all. Just didn't think that was in the cards for me. I was a very creative person. I liked theater, I liked the arts, music and singing, things like that. And I decided that, higher education wasn't for me. And I went to a musical theater conservatory in Manhattan called the American Musical and Dramatic Academy. And, was convinced that was my path and that was what I was going to do with my life. It was a really interesting experience. And in some ways, I really loved it. But it also was a world and a culture and an environment that exposed me more to, different kinds of behavior and pathology. And ultimately, for me, didn't feel like a healthy environment and like the healthiest career path for myself, and kind of just rethought, being part of that world. I kept acting, right? I kept, engaging in theater and acting and singing it. And I loved that stuff. And, had a small theater company with some of my peers and, was directing and acting in a play about women in their nervous breakdowns. And I loved it because despite, not wanting to kind of go on, to college or graduate school, goodness, had always been really interested in psychology, kind of just like a pet fascination with people in psychology. And one of the things that I noticed as I got more immersed in acting in general, but particularly with this play that was so focused on, mental health and mental illness and what that looked like, I found that more so than the performative piece, what I was really compelled by was like the character analysis, the stories, the histories, like trying to really wrap my head around the psychology of the people that I was trying to play, right? Who they were, how they came that way, what in their life, caused them to do these different things that they were doing. a little bit separate from that, I had decided just to, go back to school to get an undergraduate degree, as I was kind of feeling like, theater is great. I love it, but I'm not sure this is my, forever career path. And I thought psychology was interesting. So I, signed up and figured I'd take, 2 years of whatever I wanted, get my BFA and, call it a day. Um, the more exposure I got to psychology, the more I started realizing how much I loved the character analysis and that like piece of things. It just kind of clicked for me, and had this aha moment, and I was like, no, I love this, right? This is what I want to do. This is what I feel that I'm meant to do. And I sort of never looked back. I stayed at the new school. It was a great place to train and learn. And not only did I get my BFA, but then my master's and my PhD from there, and never could have predicted that was where I was going to end up in my life, right? And for me, it's just this really funny example of not always being able to predict where life is going to take you, because I went from no plans to attend college at all, to having a doctoral degree and doing all of these, many wonderful and amazing things that we talked about.
Amazing. You're talking about possibilities and how human being can be so powerful to find her, his, their way. Thank you so much, Dr. Doran, and congratulations on just going through this path and to get here. So, what are you doing in your field? I have heard that you are doing lots of virtual care. And I would like to know what's the benefits and the limitations of the virtual care.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, telehealth wasn't something that I necessarily set out to do or saw myself doing. And I started in just a clinical role in a very small like telemental health hub. The VA, sort of wisely was trying to get this off the ground before COVID was even a thing. So had been doing it for a couple of years before, the rest of the field sort of had to transition over. Overall, I'll just say that overall, I find telehealth to be a really wonderful tool and a really effective modality of care. So that certainly doesn't mean that it's the right choice for everyone, right? Or that it's the, best tool in any clinical situation or any set of circumstances. I think some of the main benefits, and I think probably the most important benefit, is access to care. It opens up the ability to access really high quality mental health care in a way, that isn't always possible when you're looking for a provider in person, and you have to drive to a clinic and take time off work and arrange childcare and all of these things. There are so many barriers to mental health care, which we know works best when it's regular and consistent, right? It's not an appointment that you pop into every 3 months and things are fine, right? You really have to meet regularly and do the work. Virtual care takes away so many of the barriers that make it difficult or impossible for people to participate in care. Now, it's not perfect. It's not a panacea, right? Because I work in really rural communities. The veterans that I work with are up in rural Maine and rural New Hampshire. And it's often the case that the places that need the virtual care the most have barriers to participating in virtual care, right? The more rural and remote the community, the less access to high quality Wi-Fi that supports the ability, to engage in video telehealth in a meaningful way. So it is both positive from a social justice, like access to care perspective, but not perfect, because there are other systemic things that we need to fix to make sure that, when this is the right or the best or the only choice for someone, that they have the resources and the support they need to be able to utilize this modality. I think, I also think that telehealth is great for some things and more challenging for others. If you're talking about sort of a weekly psychotherapy, psychotherapy is talking to people. It's what you and I are doing here this morning. It's talking and connecting, and you can do that in so many different ways, whether someone is physically in your office or not. There are things that are trickier, psychological testing and assessment, right? Coordinating like couples and family care. Sometimes there are things that are more tricky about the virtual care environment. And in some ways, you both gain a lot of great information when you're seeing someone in their natural environment and into their home. But you also lose things. So, for example, if I'm meeting with someone and they smell of alcohol, right, and they're intoxicated, and that would be the
Right.
only clue, I'm going to miss that. Like, I'm going to miss that, sensory information. If someone has physical scars from cutting or something else, and, right now you can't see my hands, you can't see my arms, right? So there are many benefits and also many challenges and many limitations. Um, I've done some research in this area and pretty much across the board, most providers also talk about that there is just this like physical presence, this felt like sense of physical intimacy when you're in the room with somebody that is just different, right? That there are, pieces that get lost that make, things feel not quite the same. Um, Despite that, I've done really long-term and meaningful work over telehealth, came in as a skeptic, didn't expect to love it and to do it regularly, right? And have found that the benefits outweigh some of the cost and that it really can be a wonderful and meaningful way to engage in the work that we do.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's really beneficial for all of us who do telehealth. So, would you please share us your challenges in leadership roles during pandemic? Because, when you became a president, it was COVID, right? And also you are directing in your workplace and during COVID. How did you do that? And how you're doing that?
It's an interesting and a very difficult question, right? There are so many challenges. And I think for me, the biggest one has just been this sense of pressure because everything is busier and bigger and more high stakes. I ran for the position of CPA president just a couple months before, COVID hit and the world changed. And in some ways, had I known, I don't think I would have done it. I had just had a baby, right? I have, an 18-month-old. I had just had a baby again, like, 2 or 3 weeks before the world shut down.
Yes.
And I knew that. And I think had I known that a global pandemic was coming that was going to completely uproot my life and my family's life, I think I would have thought twice about, taking on this position. Having said that, it's such a privilege to serve during this time and to, be able to help and contribute, make sure that people have information, that the advocacy feels even higher stakes, right? So I feel like it's an honor and a privilege as much as an unexpected challenge. So for me, I feel that I have, 3 like massive jobs, right? 3 really big jobs. Running a New England wide virtual care clinic is a big job, right? I feel this, tremendous sense of responsibility, not only to my staff, to my team, but the veterans that we serve, that we're responsible for serving, who, sometimes if we're not doing the care, can't get care. CPA president is a huge job. It's a very big job. It's a very busy job. I love it. I love the work. I care deeply about the work. But through these challenging times, I have also felt responsible for, Connecticut psychology during a pandemic, and not only the organization, right, which, very strongly so, but all of the psychologists in our state kind of grappling with these issues. Those are my 2 big day jobs, right? And on top of all that, I'm a mom to 2 young boys. I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. Parents, right? This has been an exceedingly difficult time for parents and families, right? As for everyone. So add to all of that work stuff, like the pressure and responsibility to like make sure my family's okay and my kids are okay and that they're getting what they need and staying safe, staying healthy,
Yes.
through all of this. And I thought about this really honestly, and I wanted to give a real honest, just like authentic answer to this question, because I think it's easy to just, gloss over and, talk about how busy things are, and they are. But for me, it's this like crushing weight of responsibility of like these jobs that, if I'm being honest, feels really overwhelming at times. Right. And, I think sometimes over the past, year and a half, we have all needed time and space to just like not be okay. Right. To not feel like together, to not feel 100% on top of everything. And I think that for me has been really hard, is feeling like I can't have those moments of not being okay because there's too much that needs to be done, and too much, responsibility. And don't get me wrong. Like I have had my moments of just, like crying in the shower for 5 minutes.
Right.
Because it feels like too much. And right, just this pressure and responsibility to do everything that has to be done and support the community, our providers, our patients, and, my veterans. And it's a lot to juggle. And I think just, again, like the stakes feel really high, and the work feels even more important in the context of what we're all going through and living through. And it's, it's been so important and hard to make time to focus on self-care, right? To
Wow.
focus on
Yes.
myself enough so that I can keep going and right, keep, doing the work and stay present and focused and active. And I think no matter how difficult it is, it's so critical that we do that, for ourselves, whether we're in a leadership role or not. And frankly, if you're a parent, you're in a leadership role, right? Like that
Right.
is a leadership position, separate from the other things that we do. And it's so important. And for me, like really protecting time with my kids, like keeping that sacred, having, hours where I don't take calls, and, weekends where I go out and dance around the house and be silly and take day trips and, step away from the computer, has been sort of the saving grace, for my sanity, for my life. And I think no matter how busy we all are, we have to take the time to check in, to care for ourselves, to laugh, to have fun, to have support. It's just so important when things are difficult. And I mean, right, they're difficult right now.
Wow. Dr. Doran, congratulations on whatever you're doing. And your leadership and the way you act is a great learning for us. And I would like to say thank you. The story of your life and the way you lead and deal with challenges are inspiring. And, your sentences, stay in the present moment, do the self-care. And it's okay not to be okay at times. That's fascinating. Thank you so much again for this beautiful interview. Thanks for your time, and thanks for accepting our invitation. Have a nice day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.